Because we're in Montreal, the question isn't should we panic, but how much should we panic due to Shea Weber's lower body injury? That and more in this week's edition of Hockey Inside Out. I'm Adam Susser, joining you from downtown Montreal with the Gazette's Jack Todd and Stu Cowan and CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak. Here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number 1, will Max Pacioretty's hot streak continue in the playoffs? Number 2, is Shea Weber's injury cause for concern? Number 3, will the lack of offense from the fourth line become a problem in the postseason? Number 4, our HIO viewer question of the week asks, who needs to step up most for the Habs to have a shot at the Stanley Cup? And number 5, what is rookie Artturi Lehkonen's ceiling? Let's start the show. At this point in the season, I think it's finally safe to say that Max Pacioretty has officially redeemed himself from captaining a team that ended last year in complete disarray. As of Wednesday morning, Pacioretty has 35 goals for the 4th season in a row, and he has 7 points in his last 5 games. It only took about 75 games, but I think the Canadiens have finally figured out who's on their number 1 line, and it's led by their team's captain. Do you think Max Pacioretty's strong play will continue in the playoffs?
I hope it does, because you definitely need a guy like Max Pacioretty to lead the way for your team. And he also has a lot of playoff experience now. I know in the past few years, Pacioretty has been really streaky when it comes to the playoffs. So hopefully he can learn from that experience and be able to bring it into this year.
I was one of the people who thought at the beginning of the season that the Canadiens should have made Shea Weber the captain instead of Max Pacioretty. Pacioretty's proven me wrong. The more I've gotten to know Shea Weber, you realize he might be a good captain in Nashville, but he couldn't be in Montreal. He doesn't want to handle any of the media responsibility facing the press. Max has really impressed me this year, both on and off the ice. I think Kirk Muller being here has really helped him. I think he has a guy who's been a captain of the Canadiens before, somebody you can talk to, bounce ideas off of, and he just seems a lot more comfortable with the C on him this year than he did last year, and I think he will continue through the playoffs. I think he has carried this team offensively much of the season. He's scored big goals. He's been more physical. He's gone to dirty areas more than the past. So I think that will continue, if not get better in the playoffs.
It's tough to say in the playoffs. The ice gets so tight and it gets so tough to score. And then a guy goes 2 games without scoring, starts squeezing the stick and all that. But I agree with you. He's really impressed me this year.
One of the things that you were mentioning was talking to the media, and that was an issue that Max Pacioretty had in the 2014 playoff run when I believe it was the series against Boston, and he was nowhere to be found. That at one point I think they had to say to him, come out and speak to the media, and of course he chose to speak to the media in Boston instead of Montreal. So hopefully that can kind of be a learning experience to him, that know that you need to be the one that communicates to the media, especially being the captain here in Montreal.
I think Pacioretty's harder on himself than anybody is on him. He's really self-critical of his own game, and I think that in the past might have been a bit of a problem where he's got down. He also, I think he listens maybe too much to what's going on around in the media and what's being said and written about him. And again, the morning skate in one of the games in Florida, he spent more than 5 minutes with a one-on-one conversation with Kirk Muller, and I think Kirk Muller is the perfect guy to work with Max Pacioretty and help him through what it takes to be captain of the Canadiens.
Yeah. Going back to Shea Weber, he's been out now as of Wednesday morning for 2 games with a lower body injury. Is this something that Habs fans should worry about?
Well, Jessica's got a term she called the LBI. The NHL might want to pick up on that, the LBI and the UBI. He didn't take part in the morning skate in Florida before the game against the Panthers, but I saw him walking out of the arena, and there was no noticeable limp. So I think this is maybe the equivalent of when they used to send Larry Robinson to Florida with 10 games left in the regular season to take a rest. I think this is a similar type of situation.
You know, I don't doubt at all that he's injured. Probably every quadrant of every one of these guys is injured by this time of the year. So you just pick one. Okay, what is it, Shea? Yeah, your knee's a little stiff today. Okay, you're missed the next 3 games.
Yeah, and he hadn't missed a game all season, playing 26 minutes a game, so he's beat up.
But this is one of the perfect examples why teams have to really try and give themselves this buffer zone before the playoffs start, because say if they were tight right now, and if you look at the Atlantic Division, it's insane. Every single day you look at it, the standings have completely shifted. So with the Canadiens having clinched the top part of the Atlantic, it really helps that you could send Shea Weber home, have him looked at by the Canadiens medical staff, and then try and heal this injury as much as you can prior to the playoffs starting.
And clinching early and having the depth the Canadiens have now really helps you. I wouldn't be surprised to see Andrei Markov miss a game or 2 now, to give him a rest. Maybe some other key players. Maybe Max Pacioretty takes a game off. They have the depth to be able to do that, and I think it would be a good move moving forward.
And why do you think they're not resting Carey Price? He's scheduled to play.
There's 3 games left. I don't think you want Carey Price not playing 3 games. I think he'll play 2 of them, and either Montoya, if he's recovered from his lower body injury, or Lindgren will play 1. But I think Price will want to play 2 of them and take 1 of them off.
Especially too, because Carey Price is the kind of goaltender that's always said that if I could, I would play every single game of the season. And he feels that he gets better with the more games he plays. But realistically, you can't allow him to play that much. So it's good for him to cruise into the playoffs feeling good about himself, and I'm sure he sits down with Claude Julien, and Claude's like, okay, Carey, which games do you want to play? And then they'll accommodate his
there'll probably be a 3-day break between the last regular season game and the playoffs, so he'll get some rest there too.
Okay. The fourth line seems to be a revolving door of, let's call them big people who can't score. Do you think that if the Habs go deep into the playoffs, that the lack of offense from the fourth line will become a problem?
Big guys like Jack.
Yeah, they need me out there. I think Dwight skates about as well as I do and wants to be here even less. If I read this guy right, he's not happy to be here. You know, he's the opposite of Jordy Ben.
Why not? Why don't you think he's happy to be here?
Would you be?
Everyone wants to play for
If you came from Los Angeles?
If I was a hockey player, well, maybe if, I don't know, LA is nice, but come on.
I mean, the 3 guys,
everyone's dream.
Martinson, Ott, and King, they haven't scored a goal yet.
Yeah.
The 3 of them combined. Yeah. And I think, they do bring size, though. They do, and I think they help wear down the other team's defense a little bit. And they really have. The Canadiens have been too small for too long.
Yeah,
and I understand what Bergevin was sort of trying to do with those deals. All these guys are like here for this year. I don't think they're here beyond that. But going forward, I think they're going to have to get more offense out of them. And it's interesting too now because Torrey Mitchell seems to have lost his spot on the fourth line. And Mike McCarron, I still think Mike McCarron's better than the 3 guys they picked up, and I'd rather see him on the fourth line.
I love how this fourth line has now become a controversy of when are you going to have a stable fourth line?
Well, there has to be a controversy.
You can't have not. But when I think things are good when you're worrying about your fourth line, but your fourth line, as we mentioned, is not responsible for scoring the goals. They're the ones who are supposed to bring size, bring some grit. If you can add the energy that maybe will get the other 3 lines going, that's almost as good as scoring a goal as well. So I think let Claude Julien continue to mix up that fourth line and see what goes well. Maybe this inner competition will heat up between those guys once the playoffs start because they want to be part of that energy that comes with playing in Montreal during the playoffs.
And the depth is so important. And big guys get hurt less than little guys. Yeah. So they have a lot of depth going into the playoffs, and guys will get hurt in the playoffs.
I'm sure everybody's looking at Andrew Ghetto and saying, well, if they would have kept him, he'd be scoring. Well, it's different, especially with a little guy like that in the playoffs.
When you're playing with Nathan McKinnon, it helps too. But I mean, Andrew Ghetto's a guy. I mean, they had too many small guys here. Somebody had to go.
And I could have seen Ott. It seems like they kind of just got 3 of the same players. I think Ott is my favorite out of the 3 that's not scoring. I just like to see him, rile up other teams.
He'll in the playoffs. He gets under guys' skins.
Exactly.
I mean, this is a guy when he went to the World Junior Tournament. He learned how to swear in all the languages of the teams he was going to play against, so he can get under their skin. So this shows you what type of guy he is, and he's also really good in the face-off circle. Yeah. And at practice, you'll see him helping other guys with their face-off skills.
And he's great in the room too. Guys love him. So he's bringing a lot of things off the ice as well.
Okay, it's time for HIO viewer question of the week. This week's question comes to us from Stefan Lichu from Toronto. He's getting a mug, and that's special because they don't even give me mugs. I guess I got to start writing in with questions. So anyways, if you beat me next week, you're going to get a mug. This week's question asks, which player do you think needs to step up most in the playoffs besides Carey Price for the Habs to go all the way?
I would really like to see Alex Galchenyuk step up. That he's a player that once he kind of gets that first goal and he really likes these moments of high pressure situations, I think he can continue to roll. And this is kind of an opportunity for him to prove himself. Yes, he's moved from center to the wing, but now that he's on the wing, just focus on scoring goals and he can be a difference maker during the playoffs.
Alex Galchenyuk needs to step up not just for the Canadiens, he needs to step up for Alex Galchenyuk. He's a restricted free agent after this season. He hasn't done much to help himself this year. And I'm starting to seriously wonder if Marc Bergevin might shop him around in the summer and see what he can get for him. This is a second coach. They drafted him to be a center. Michel Therrien didn't think he was a center. It didn't take Claude Julien long to think he wasn't a center. He's on the left wing. I don't know if he's moping or what's going on, but he's got to do something for the Canadiens and for himself if he wants to get some kind of a contract going.
Who would you like to see him traded for if you were in charge? Who do you think what's a realistic trade you think they can make for Galchenyuk?
I don't think Nathan Beaulieu will be back here next year either. He's another guy, restricted free agent. I think if you package those 2 guys together, Matt Duchene in Colorado looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know. And you know, it's I can see both of those guys moving because you got Sergachev coming up, who could fill Beaulieu's spot, and Galchenyuk. I just think Marc Bergevin is.
Sometimes
what am I going to do with this guy? Sometimes you just need a different environment, and you know, the thing with Alex Galchenyuk too. I think the family around him is a problem also. I think the father's always around, and I just don't know moving forward with Montreal if he will remain here.
Okay.
He wouldn't be the first guy who's had his career ruined by his father. Seriously. I've seen a few there, including one whose father ran up $250,000 in bills on the kid's credit card.
Can you name names, Jack?
But it is,
it's only on the internet. Don't worry. No,
it is. I mean, there's, you know, behind a lot of superstar hockey players is a bit of a crazy hockey dad too. So it's, but it's a thing. Once you get to the NHL, you need to deal with it. Your kid is
cut the umbilical cord.
Cut the cord, and you know, Sidney Crosby's dad was around a lot when he first came into the league and realized leave the kid.
Sidney Crosby's dad deluged me with 4-letter emails for a month after I dared to say that Crosby might not win the Calder.
Wow.
That was the first time you had someone criticize you, eh?
That's the first time I had a father of a superstar all over my case.
Do you have that letter framed? Did you print out the email? Okay, Artturi Lehkonen is finishing up his rookie season. He's gotten more consistent with point production the last 10 or so games. What do you think his point production ceiling is?
I'd say I think he's going to be a consistent 20-goal scorer in the NHL with the possibility of maybe hitting 30. I don't know if he could go higher than that. But the thing with this kid, his hockey sense and his play in the defensive zone is incredible. His dad was a hockey coach. I think that plays into it. I think he learned, his dad taught him from a young age to play the two ends of the rink. He told me once that playing in Sweden on the big rink helped him learn more about defensive zone coverage. So coaches can put him out in any situation they want, and he's got that wicked shot that we saw. And the thing when you see him in the room, Jess, I mean, he looks like a 14-year-old kid. I mean, he's got a bit of acne. He's not really physically developed. And I think once he gets stronger and once he puts on more weight, he's going to become even more effective because he's not afraid to go to the dirty areas. But when he has 10 more pounds of muscle on him and he starts going there, look out.
And he's a little bit shy. What I liked about the game against the Florida Panthers where he scored 2 goals, he was talking afterwards saying, you know, I just want to do what I could to help out the team. Yeah, a pair of goals, that's a perfect thing that you can do for him. But I think what's good with him too is he's kind of one of those players that's under the radar, that there's not a huge spotlight on him. And I think that's a perfect way for him to flourish because he's not going to have the pressure of, okay, I've now gone, 9 games without scoring a goal and the media is coming to see me, that it's, I can take my time and figure out my game and pick my points.
There's a guy named Cy Semberg who used to be the PR guy for René Fassel at the IHF, and now I think he's running the European League. Knows more about European hockey than anybody I know. And he points to Lehkonen as an example of the value of keeping these guys in the European leagues, letting them play against men for a couple of years, and then they come here. And Lehkonen appears so smart, but he really learned his trade at a very high level. I think better for him than playing maybe AHL or
I wonder with Austin Matthews too. Look at the season he's having now after going there rather than playing junior.
And Lehkonen
started a trend here.
Lehkonen's such a soft-spoken kid. If you're at the back of a scrum, you can't hear a word he's saying. But when you get him one-on-one, he's a funny kid. Like he's really funny and witty. And one of the highlights of the season for me was watching. I think it was in Calgary after a morning skate with Andrew Shaw on his hands and knees untying Lehkonen's skates, like the veteran untying the rookie skates. And I said to Lehkonen, "What happened there?" He says, "Oh, I beat him in rock paper scissors." So it was. But the kid, and him and Shaw seem to have a real bond on and off the ice. But I think this kid has a really, really bright future with the Canadiens.
Okay. And that is our show for this week. I want to thank the panel for showing up. Jack, Stu, and Jessica, I want to thank you for watching at home. Subscribe to us if you haven't already. Leave comments in the comment section below. And we'll see you next week. The playoffs are starting.